Hey everybody, this speech is a little late and I'm sorry, but this speech is just going to be myself addressing some of the points my opponent brought up in his last affirmative speech, and then going on to show why this is an opposition ballot today. Um, so my opponent accepted the fact that the first test that he cited doesn't work. So the mirror test doesn't actually prove whether dolphins are sentient beings or not. And then his next thing is said they can communicate with sonar and they can find each other underwater. Well, other than the underwater part, so can many other animals, but they're still legally raised and killed for human use. So if the test doesn't work, the next thing that we should look at is communication. I'm sorry, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We can't use this because tons of animals can communicate, and the only difference between dolphins and dogs are the dolphins communicate underwater. The next step to finding out whether an animal is a sentient being is not by looking at whether they can communicate in a manner humans can't understand. We have to figure out a different system, but communication is not how we determine whether an animal is a sentient being or not. Nextly, my opponent said that we could do something, but it has to be one step at a time. I agree with this statement 100%. But that means that we should take care of the problems of animal cruelty in our own backyard first. One step at a time, take care of your things before you go and deal with other people. We have to make sure that treat animals fairly and not cruelly, which we actually have a very cruel treatment of certain animals here before we can criticize anyone, whether it's Japan, China, Korea, France, we don't know, but we have to make sure that all things are locked down with us first. End of story. And then his next point was he said that it will lead to the quote emancipation of the American dolphins, but not necessarily. All my opponent advocated for was the end of the dolphin hunt, not any other action. So this point doesn't really fall. Beyond that, the end of the dolphin killing in Japan doesn't have a direct connection with the end of holding dolphins in captivity. If they tried to cut off the supply of dolphins for SeaWorld from Japan, was to stop China from going and capturing dolphins themselves. It's not a successful way to do this, and now we have to move towards a better way of fixing this problem. Next, he said that Japan, since they're in the UN, agrees to what the UN has said and the directives that they'll hand out. There's only one real major problem with this. Japan hasn't ever done it. Recently, March 31st, in fact, the UN required, in fact, demanded that Japan end their whale hunt in the Arctic, and Japan for only a certain amount of weeks said, okay, we'll do it. And then Japanese officials held a buffet in which the main entree, if you will, or the main ingredient in most of the dishes was whale. And then they urged even other Japanese officials to continue the hunt. So there really are no examples of the UN working, at least not with Japan, and not anywhere else. So we have to focus on what we can actually accomplish. And we have to end cruelty, but we have to do it in the right way. We can't just go out and say, you know what, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. We have to say, what are we doing wrong first? Now, why is this an opposition ballot today? Well, firstly, you have to look at the fact that Japan won't listen. If Japan doesn't listen, it's not worth our time. Secondly, the action that needs to be taken has to be much bigger. There's more acts of cruelty than just this hunt, and if we're going to fix one of them, we might as well go and fix more of them. Those are the two most important parts, is that one, the action won't work, and two, it's not the appropriate action. If this was the dolphin hunt is bad, yes, but it's not. It's that the dolphin hunt should be ended by the UN. And for those reasons, it's an opposition ballot in this round. I'd like to thank my opponent and my judge. Thank you.